ride with me in my foul life.
We're back. The Foul Life Podcast. What is shaking? Hope y'all are enjoying this unbelievable series we got going on, second year in a row with Wildfowl Magazine, the Giant Gear issue. Do you have your copy? Did it come in the mail? Did you get it on the newsstand? Or did you go to your favorite duck lodge and get one off of the coffee table? Like we've said so many times before, if you go somewhere that has something to do with duck and goose hunting, they don't have a copy of the gear issue sitting out in public eye, I probably personally would not take that place too serious. You got to have the Bible of duck hunters, goose hunters, waterfowl enthusiasts, the Wildfowl Giant Gear issue. Today, we're covering the section of boat and motors. My co-host, Skip Knowles, editor-in-chief of Wildfowl Magazine, is back with us. Skip, what's shaking?
Oh, not much, man. Thanks for having me again. I get so fired up after our last one when the guys were doing calling sequences. If that doesn't get you fired up for the season, nothing will, except maybe talking about duck boats and duck motor.
And today we have our guest, the founder and owner of Gator Tail Nation, Gator Tail Boats and Motors and Surface Drive Motors, Kyle Broussard. He comes from the land of Louisiana, the land of the Cajuns, the land of gumbo and etouffee and crawfish. He comes from the land where duck calling is very important down there. But even more important to me, Kyle, is the food down there. Y'all know how to cook a duck. Y'all know how to cook whatever it takes. I don't know if there's anybody in the world that eats better than a Cajun or Louisianan. Is this fair to say, Kyle Broussard?
Yeah, man. We know how to cook a gravy down here.
Yeah.
You know, that's your day revolves around what you're cooking. You know, at the camp during hunting season, that's the main topic. You know, what are we eating? What we're gonna cook? How we're gonna cook it? You know, what's for breakfast? What's in the blind? What we eating for dinner? You know, it's just always something down there.
I always joke that I could not live in Louisiana or I'd be 350 pounds for sure instead of just 280.
Well, I think some of the coolest parts of what I've got to experience, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I don't know how many hunting camps I've gone to, a lot of times in Canada, where I show up, and I'm lucky enough to be sharing camp with a Cajun family, friends, and they're literally all about two things. Well, three things. The duck or goose hunt in the morning, and then it's straight to a cold beer at noon, and then standing around a big pot of gravy and gumbo, and they're taking the speckle belly legs and the Canada goose legs, and they're browning them, and they're putting them down in the bottom of this gumbo pot, and they got this big paddle, and they just stir it all day, and everything is slow motion, and everything is laid back, and everything is relaxed, and it's just like the coolest vibe. And the other part that I love more than anything, I think, in duck and goose hunting, besides the vocalizations, because everybody knows how much I love to call, even though I am average, below average, according to most, at calling ducks and geese, I freaking love the boat ride. I've often talked about on the Foul Life how is there anything cooler than working your way through timber or through a marsh in a slough. The moon's still up, the stars are out, you can smell the motor, you can smell the exhaust, your dog's in there excited as heck to go, the decoys are up on the front of the boat, the guns are hidden safely and secure in the boat. There's just something about a duck hunter's boat ride that is worth a million words to me. I can't get enough of it. I love ATVs and UTVs and trucks, and I love all of walking in. But a boat ride, it's waterfowl hunting for a reason. I love being in a boat, and I just love the idea of a boat ride. Kyle Broussard, Gator Tail Nation. I don't know if I've seen growth and adrenaline and just an entire momentum behind a brand like I've seen with Gator Tail lately. Congratulations on the success, Kyle. We have you on here because you're part of the gear issue. You're part of the Wildfowl Nation as well as the founder of the Gator Tail Nation. But talk to me real quick about COVID, raw materials, and how tough it really is to get or to even come close to meeting the demand of Gator Tail boats and motors right now.
You know, Chad, I mean, we are production. We are 100% at production. We produce every day. You know, we have 40 to 50 employees that show up for work every day and put in their time. And I've never in my career have ran it this close on waiting for supplies. You know, usually you can plan ahead and you can. But I mean, it's even any given day that you're going to get a email from a vendor, you're going to get a phone call from a vendor and saying, well, Your supplies were supposed to be done on this day, and now it's delayed a week, it's delayed 2 weeks, it's delayed 3 months. It's a battle, you know, and you're not just going to take any old parts and put them into these motors and boats. You know, you want quality stuff. So it's a juggling act. And, you know, all we can ask is that our customers will be patient with us and we can get them the supply, you know, get them the motors, get them the boats, get them whatever they need when you know, in a timely manner. It's been a whirlwind, I can tell you.
I can imagine. Skip, I have some questions for Kyle that I'm very interested in for our audience to hear today. But I wanted to get your opinion, Skip, on my first statement of a boat ride. I've been on many great boat rides in your home state of Colorado, Skip Knowles. But is there something about coming back to the lodge or to the boat ramp with a strap full of ducks and geese, knowing that you're going to put that boat back on the trailer and head to the cafe, go home, clean your birds, get a nap, get out there scouting again? But talk to me about your feelings behind a boat ride, Skip Knowles.
It's a lot more work, you know, it's a lot more expense, it's a lot more time involved, and it's 1,000% worth it. You know, compared to going out in a field and throwing out your layouts and throwing out some decoys on, you know, ground that you can walk on. If you have a day out in the field and it's cold and bitter and miserable and the birds don't work, you can kind of say you had a lousy day other than the fact that you got outside. But have you ever gone anywhere in a boat when it wasn't such a big part of the journey, a big part of the experience, that you go out in a boat and go duck hunting and buzz through a swamp or saltwater marsh or a Texas Gulf Coast intercoastal waterway, whatever it may be, or, you know, Lake Michigan. You had an experience and a find one and a memory to log for that day. Even if you don't see a bird or cut a feather, it's just the boat ride is a huge, huge part of that. There's a pride in ownership. I'm about to haul off to Arkansas to get a 16-foot extra wide John boat that is, my father bought it in 1984. It's on its second Mercury outboard. And we've done more in that boat, which is completely nothing like the state-of-the-art stuff that Kyle is selling. It's an old riveted John boat. It's extra wide, but we slam on the brakes, we get green stuff over the transom. But it's been full of huge dead king salmon. It's been full of ducks from Florida to the Seattle area. And crabs and just so many memories in a boat, you know, that you don't get them any other way.
Kyle's, I would say that there's the motors that Gator Tail builds. I mean, amazing. I've driven a lot of them. There's a lot of good ones on the market. I'm not going to say that there's not a lot of good boat motors out there, but the operation behind a Gator Tail, to me, Skip, the liquidity of it, how smooth it is, how easy it is to master. And this is what I love about it, is the confidence it gives me, the safety aspect of it, and the ease of use of it, which is huge navigating a lot of the waters that we navigate, especially when you start adding in stumps and trees and ice and live humans in there and dogs in there. And you're trying to navigate a lot of the times in the dark. You have to be safe. You have to be secure. You have to be confident. I love what Kyle and his team design and build, the new Predator Series boats. Let's talk about the motor for a minute, though, please. Kyle Broussard from Gator Tail Nation, if you don't mind. A lot of our listeners tune in because of instruction. They want to learn. I want to learn. I've often told people on the Fowl Life TV show, Kyle, that I pride myself in what I've learned in a duck boat, because when I first started, I was like, man, look at these guys drive these boats and how good they are at it. Look how they navigate. Look at them go over that beaver dam. Look at the things they can do. And I always wanted to become better and more proficient at it. And I feel that I have, but I know for a fact that I'm not there yet. So if you had to tell somebody starting out with a Gator Tail motor, surface drive, explain what that means, Kyle Broussard. And what are some of the first things that we need to look at? I'm talking about if we've already bought our motor, it's on our boat. What are some of the first things an instructor would say about the prop, about the level of the prop, about the depth of the prop? Obviously, you have your safety, your emergency rope on that will disconnect the motor if you do happen to get into an accident. Talk about some of the things you would tell a customer or a first-time user to get acquainted with your motor and to be safe and successful with it.
Well, starting out, whenever we started building these things, I guess about almost 20 years ago, the horsepower wasn't nearly what we have now. So today we built a 40 horsepower motor. The majority of our boats will leave the shop running over 30 miles an hour. Okay. So, and I mean, a lot of these boats can run 30 miles an hour with a 2-man hunting load. And what the biggest thing whenever they first came out, everybody thought that you need to try to run, you got to keep wide open throttle everywhere as you go. And then back in the day you did, because you didn't have enough power to be able to power through things. Now what I tell people is you get the boat, get you a GPS, and you go and run the boat deep water, and you learn the boat and you figure out where the trim angle needs to be for the most comfort for the driver. And it may not necessarily be the fastest speed is going to run, but you want it to be the most comfortable for the driver. And like whenever you're maneuvering through the trees and through the logs and everything, it doesn't always have to be wide open. You have some reserve power now with a 40 horsepower engine that, you don't have to run full blast through it. You got some reserve power. You can hit the gas when you need it. You've got to jump over something. You give it a little bit more gas, to bounce off and do those kind of things. And it's just a matter of getting to know your boat, getting to know your vessel, learning how to drive it. It's kind of what it's about.
How important, Kyle Broussard? How important, Kyle Broussard? We always talk about your dog's got to be trained. You practice your duck call. You go out to the sporting clays range. You dust off your decoys. You repaint your decoys. You know what I'm saying? Like you go to your duck lodge, you make sure that everything's in order. How important is off-season practice for not just a newbie, but somebody of your experience? Do you still learn something new every time you're in your vessel and about your motor? Or is there any such thing as mastering it? Have you mastered it? But is off-season practice so important, like you're mentioning in your last statement?
Well, Chad, in our off season, and to answer your question, yes, I still run these things. I've been running them for 20 years, and I still learn things every time I get in. What our off season practice involves is running down completely vegetation. The vegetation has completely taken over some of our duck leases. So in other words, everything dies off in the wintertime. Here comes summertime, and these invasive water lilies or cattails or all of the existing ditches and canals are completely overgrown. So we go in there and we got to get in there with those motors and bust the trails back open and let us eat our way through it, which is different than the majority of the guys that are buying these things during hunting season. Because most of the time hunting season, a lot of these invasive all of this vegetation is broken down or drifted away or what have you come the winter months. What is important during the summertime is that, go ride your vessel, make sure that, all of these motors is just like anything else. If you park it at the end of January, early February, and you don't start it until September, you're going to have fuel issues, and that's not what you want to do. You don't want to leave them sitting up and you don't want to not run them. A big mistake that a lot of people will do, especially on the old carbureted motors, is they'll crank them up and think that everything's fine, but the engine's only really running on one cylinder. And they put it in the water for the first time and it doesn't want to go anywhere. Well, that's because it had a clogged up carburetor. Same thing can happen with fuel pumps and with the EFI system. So it's very important to make sure, your fuel systems are flushed, or get it out on the water every once in a while. Just get it back a feel for it.
Skip, when you start thinking about off season and the readers of the gear issue are going through and taking what you guys are reading and they're taking that as gospel. They're going and applying that to their purchases and their mentality of off-season prep and getting ready for the season. I understand that all hunters, spring training, baseball, there's always off-season prep. Football players report early. Everybody has that period to where they have to be prepared for the season. I just think that the mentality is always the things that I mentioned before, when some of the most important things are becoming proficient in a boat ride. When you think of everything that goes down during the boat ride. You know what I'm saying, Skip? From the safety aspect to it, to getting your hunters and family and friends out there safe and return to the dock safe. What do you think of the mentality of the off season, Skip, and getting people to maybe change their habits and not so much always about the, you know, the normal stuff like a duck call and their dog training and stuff, but actually getting out and training themselves in a duck hunting scenario, a duck hunting boat ride scenario with one of these surface drive style motors?
You know, it's funny that we are so keyed up on, I got just so fired up, you know, we were talking about just calling. And we do tend to focus on that and dog training because your dog has to be steady come September, 100%. But these are not normal boats. Okay, my brother-in-law has a big wakeboard, super surfy, you know, expensive boat. He puts, I think, 4,000 pounds of water in the transom, turns the key, the bilge pump works. We go out and have fun on the lake, maybe do a little fishing. Puts it back on the trailer, he's done. Duck boats aren't like that. You know, me and Mike Miller just worked on one for 2 years here in town. It was they called it a bridge boat. It was this at least 8 feet wide, super shallow draft, like a super John boat, but built for war. They actually, the military used them to put boards across them and actually cross ditches and stuff. That's why they were called a bridge boat. But we worked on that thing for years, and Mike made so many little touches that you just have to attack in the off season. You're not doing it during the season. He welded spring-loaded devices that would hold your gun in place because so many boat blinds and duck boat gunnels are so slick and dangerous. It's just a dangerous place to lean a shotgun, you know. You have to build a security system. We rigged up an electronic thing to make the mojo and all the decoys dance. You know, that's not a normal boat deal. Your bilge pump better work and it better have a backup, you know. And of course, depth finder, navigation, all that stuff. It doesn't come to you on October 15th or October 31st. All that stuff coming together, knowing how to use it. It all has to be tweaked and tuned and everything else. You better make sure your gas tanks have, you know, they're not going to have a bunch of condensation. There's just so much to a duck boat that has to be handled in the off season. And even still, stuff's going to happen, man. Mike called his kids over to Kansas last year, and he was so excited and had worked on that boat for so long. He got there, and the steering cables were completely locked, and he didn't have any hot coffee. And they went, and he disconnected them, welded a tiller handle onto the motor, just so he took one look at his boy's face and how his face felt because they weren't going to go out in the boat, and it was below freezing. And they improvised and overcame. So I mean, that's just duck hunting and duck boats. They're not normal boats. You gotta work on them all year.
Kyle, when you start thinking about the operation part of it now, what would you tell me what I look for in that prop? Where is it supposed to be? Does it halfway in the water and halfway out? Is it all the way submerged, but just right below the surface level of the water? Where am I going to get the maximum performance out of your Gator Tail motors with consideration of where the prop goes?
Again, Chad, it's a lot. Every boat is different. Every boat, every load is different. Every driver. That's why it's very, very important to get to know your boat and know where it performs the best. And after you run it long enough, you're gonna be able to feel it in your tiller handle. You're better feel it in the sound of the engine. You know whether the engine is being over revved. You know whether it's trimmed up too high. You know. But to answer your question, most of the time, what you shoot for is you want the rooster tail to be about level with the top of the motor, if not a little bit lower. So if you see these guys coming around throwing water everywhere, that's not right. That's trimmed up too high, and you're just basically wasting your propulsion. And again, every boat is different. That particular boat, that particular prop, the guys running on it may need to operate that way. A good rule of thumb is, the prop halfway submerged to 3/4 submerged, rooster tail. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, one of my boats I was running this weekend, it's a big dual rig that we do a lot of fishing out of. And I mean, we're running those props almost submerged at the boat running, 35 miles an hour. So, I mean, it just depends.
So if rule of thumb though, most of the time you're going to be able to have a little bit, maybe a quarter of the prop to half of the prop out of the water with that rooster tail about maximum height of right with the top of the motor casing.
Correct. Now, that being said, if I know I'm running down a slough and it's got tons of trees across, I'm probably going to run my prop a little bit higher out the water than I normally will. That way you're not getting hard impacts and you're just bouncing over the top of them and you're going along your way, you know? So, I mean, you know, deep water, river running is definitely different than if you're going to be shallow water stump running. And you just with that.
So in the day and age of where we're at with motor design, Kyle Broussard, Gator Tail Nation, is there an application for a long shaft duck boat motor anymore with the advancement, technology, and innovation in the surface drive models that are being manufactured?
Jad, I'm sure there's always going to be a place for them. I know where I personally use mine, I have no use for them. I mean, I don't need them. You know, everything that I can do with mine, you know, everywhere is where I hunt and fish and use mine, surface drive does everything it needs to do. And I mean, I think that there's probably some applications where, you know, financially the long tail is a good option. You know, I mean, we all had them, we all used them. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just not nearly as comfortable and efficient as what the surface drives are.
Give me an idea, Kyle, of a memory that you have created for you and your group that you probably could not have created or witnessed or experienced without this style of boat and motor, because these things get us into places that are absolutely unheard of. Give me one off the top of your head that I don't care if it was crawfishing or night fishing or bow fishing or carp fishing or duck hunting. Is there one that comes to mind?
Well, you know, I'm going to tell you this. So I have two boys, you know, they're 14 and 11, you know, 14-year-old is 6 foot tall, you know, 175 pounds. I mean, he's a big old 14-year-old, 11-year-old, you know, he's probably 5 foot tall, you know, strong. And the thing about with these kids is that's how, you know, it goes back to what Skip was talking about with the duck boats. You know, the way my hunting these days is centered around those two boys. You know, we do a lot of family hunts together, my dad and my two boys. And it's gotten to where the boats are designed around having those kids hunting in those boats. Because, of course, you know, we do everything. We hunt out of boat blinds, you know, hunt out of the boat blind. We hunt out of the boats a lot to where, or we rod the boat to a stationary blind, get out the boat, get in the blind, go park the boat in a hod, take a pirogue back. So my hunting season, and I'm always running prototype stuff during hunting season. It may be a different hull design. It may be a different storage in the hull. It may be a different motor design. It may just something. And that's what it is. You know, we always are testing and always making it better. And these boats have become kind of like an RV. You know how you have your RV camper, and the reason why people like going in their RV is because you know where everything is. You go on a vacation in your RV, you know where everything is in there, everything you may need. And it's the same thing about hunting out of your duck boat. You know, with the storage we have in them now and the way the hull is designed, or your blind, like you're going to keep an extra 2 boxes of shells just in case your kid forgets to put something in his box that morning. You know, you have these cubby holes for that. You're going to have your de-icer. You're going to have whatever you need. You have that in your duck boat, and it's kind of like your RV. So it is nice. Everything, you know, layouts and everything. That's fun, and but this boat becomes like you're taking your RV hunting, and you may have your stove in there so you can cook breakfast. You may have, so it's always that the boats are centered around the boats and the experience. You know, these kids that we take hunting have a lot to do with that.
Is there places in Louisiana that you can hunt ducks without a boat, or is it all boat driven down in that part of the country? And I'm talking mainly where you're from in southern Louisiana, more Cajun country. Northern Louisiana, I would assume that you could do some ATV stuff, but is it mainly by boat?
Yeah, no, but there is some rice field hunting done down here. You know, in fact, the first duck hunt I ever went on was in a crawfish pond, 5 miles from where we live. And that was with a buddy of mine. He took me, and it was a crawfish pond. We walk in, park your truck, and walk through there. Crawfish pond is a rice field. They grow rice and then they flood it and put out the crawfish cages and you catch crawfish in the rice field. So that's the kind of ATV hunting that's here. But majority all public duck hunting in Louisiana is probably, I would say, probably 90% boat related. And all of the leases that we hunt and the private lands that we hunt is all boat. You got to get there by boat.
Kyle, you hear a lot of people say that I won't go duck hunting if I can't bring my dog with me. You've said that now it centers around your two boys, but personally, Kyle Broussard of Gator Tail Nation, would you duck hunt if you couldn't bring your boat with you?
Well, I'm just like every other duck hunter, man. I like to kill them. So
you're going where they're at.
It's no. And to answer your question, I've been approached on a lot of opportunities to get into duck leases in different areas. And I'm like, dude, if it's not in a boat, I'm not doing it. Now, that being said, I've killed them in the timber where it may not have been out of one of our boats. It was a private hole and a little 9.9, and I liked it just as much. I got to be honest. That's what's great about the world of duck hunting. There's a lot of diversity. You learn a lot of things. You get to meet a lot of different people. But for me, if I'm not riding in a boat in the morning, it's just something about it,
Skip, how do you feel about that statement?
Oh, I just it raises a lot of questions for me because I've never not owned a boat in my entire life, and I was curious about out west here. We have a lot of rocky terrain and hunt a lot of rocky reservoirs, as you know, Chad. I was wondering, what are the limitations on surface drives? Can you talk to people about, that everyone wants to be able to run over everything? You see the commercials, watching them blast over beaver dams and, keep going when they run out of water. And everyone wants that. There's no downside to that, right? I mean, everyone wants that Mad Max experience to be able to ultimate four-wheel drive. But what are the limitations as far as for a guy like me out here in the West in the Rocky Mountains, and there's some muddy, marshy areas that I can access and hunt. Are these boats functional on a reservoir to go bass fishing? Me and Jared Serenier beat the fish up pretty darn good from one of your gator tails about 4 years ago after duck hunting, and it was so fun. Watching the alligators chasing the bobber. Once it hit like 70 degrees, they snapped. They completely changed. We did a lot of fishing out of that boat, though. What are some of the limitations and things for people to consider? How versatile are these boats beyond just playing Mad Max and going duck hunting?
Well, for number one, just like you said about people want to take these things and go run over everything they can. It's this machine was invented. This machine was designed to be able to get in places that you needed to go in low water situation. In other words, when the tide ran out or the north winds blew, and I mean, it was designed. I designed it as we were still hunting. The same duck lease property that I'm on today is where I was hunting 25 years ago whenever I designed this thing.
Wow.
North winds would start blowing and all the water would go out, and you just basically couldn't run outboard. You couldn't do it. It was too shallow. The water pumps would get clogged. Alarms would go off, and you couldn't do it. And that's what this thing was designed for. And it's designed for in the summertime to get through the aquatics. What it's not designed for is to go tear up stuff that doesn't need to be torn up. And that's what people need to understand. We're not out here. We don't want to act like it's a ATV with 4-inch mud tires on it that the kids like to ride. Believe me, I have 2 kids and they like to do it. So, but there's a time and a place to do those kind of things. And you just gotta be aware of your surroundings. You gotta use the tool for what it was made for, and don't abuse it. Now, going back to what you were saying about the rocky reservoirs, these things, look, we don't know what rocks are in South Louisiana. But I will tell you this: they exist everywhere else besides South Louisiana. So these things, even on the coast of Florida, I mean, they take rock licks like you never would have thought. And I couldn't even fathom that until, we go down there and we start talking to some of our customers and like, oh yeah, we hit these big boulders. And I'm like, where do these rocks come from? They said, we got them everywhere. So Louisiana is really the only place that doesn't have these rocks. But to answer your question, reservoirs, deep water hunting, deep water fishing, yes, they work fine. They work just like a regular outboard motor. And of course they don't, the limit is 40 horsepower, but running the deep water the same as the shallow one.
I was shocked at one of the guides down there for Unlimited Outfitters, I think, guide service. He was taking out lots of vets. Yeah, Jared had me hunt with him. He was talking about how many props he goes through. I was shocked because they're not cheap. The stainless steel props.
And again, so like I had a gentleman I talked to on the phone last week, and I don't remember where he was from, but he was from out of state, and he hunted some rivers, and we're talking about sand. And look, the rule of thumb is, if you get stuck on a sandbar or one of these things and you can get out and walk, well, then get out and walk and push your boat to the deeper water until you can jump back in. Because now, see, what we run into a lot down here is a sandy mud. So it's the same thing as anywhere else in Louisiana. You jump out and you sink up past your knees. You're not going to want to walk in there and push a boat in there. So you just trim the motor down and let it eat, and you get out. But the downfall to that is, it's sand. It's straight sand on stainless steel, so it's gonna tear up the propellers. And look, since then propellers have got better, wear resistance have got better. So I mean, but that is a wear item of the machine, and a lot of regions that these motors are used in, the propellers last a hell of a lot longer than if you were on the coast of Louisiana.
Interesting.
Do you have a national presence now, Kyle? Are people all over the country using these type of boat motors, or is this mainly in the area where you live in and design these motors? There's a lot of manufacturers from that part of the country. The reason I'm asking is, is it starting to spread westward more and northwards more?
Oh yeah. We have them. I mean, pretty much every place where there's duck hunting, we have motors. So I mean, it's they have their use pretty much across the country.
Where is the mentality of, is there an education part of educating the customer on why they want it, or do most people come with you with their mind made up, like, I have to have that surface drive because I know it's going to help me be a better duck hunter, fisherman, whatever?
I think that in the early years, we spent all of our time on the phone trying to convince people that they needed these things. Now we spend our time on the phone trying to help them through the buying process as to which boat or which motor they may need. And look, I'll be the first one to tell you, if I get someone on the phone that I don't think needs one of these, I'm going to tell them, I don't think this is the right motor or the right boat for you, because you need X, Y, Z instead of this. So I mean, I think we've proven that the reliability is great on them. The functionality is great, and some people they may buy them and see that they don't need them, but the majority of the ones that buy them are very, very happy with them. And again, what Mother Nature is. You know how climate has changed. You know how, like last year we had lots of water. This year it's a drought. This year Louisiana has more water than we've had I mean, it rains here every day, multiple times a day. I mean, it's completely flooded. So it's just, you never know what each season is going to bring. You never know what each year is going to bring. But there's always a need for them.
What is the state of duck hunting in Louisiana right now? Has it been okay? Are you happy with it? Or are you going to say nothing like it was 20, 25 years ago when you designed your first boat motor? Is anything changing for the better?
It's I'll tell you this, Chad, I'll tell you, we had years, like you said, 20, 25 years ago, we had years back then that wasn't good as 10 years ago. The last 5 to 7 years has been a struggle, but we've had some great hunts, and we've had great hunts. We've had bad hunts, and it's just all about the experience. It's not so much about, you don't go out and shoot a limit of ducks every day like you did in certain years in the 2000s, but your good hunts are that much more memorable. You don't get, I guess the disappointing thing is these kids growing up don't get to see what we saw, sitting in that same duck blind and sitting in that same pond, what we saw 15 years ago or 10 years ago, they're not seeing this today. And for me, it's not a matter of going out there and having to shoot a limit. We just want these kids to be interested in the sport and try to keep the sport going. And you asked about how was a duck hunt without, not being in a boat. Well, I've been to Canada, I've done Canada, and of course there's nothing like it. And, that's something that I think every duck hunter should be able to experience, or something of that nature, because it's hard for a kid from South Louisiana to understand how you can go set up in a dry field and shoot a limit of green eggs. But, unfortunately that you're not seeing those numbers like we saw. We don't see those numbers in Louisiana anymore. So I don't know. It's the state of duck hunting in Louisiana. I think that all of us diehard hunters are gonna go no matter what. We're gonna get all giddy about it and get excited about it, just like I was when I was 10 years old. That's how my days. That's how my season starts. Is everybody doing that? I don't know. I know all of my friends that duck hunt are still duck hunting. They're still looking forward to that opening day, and they're still looking forward to having a great season. And I think this year is going to be one of our best seasons in Louisiana that we've had in a while. But just got to go with it and see what happens.
We heard that from a guy in Arkansas today, too. He believes it's going to be a memorable season like 2014 was because of some of these early cold fronts coming through and different weather conditions. But you have a memorable hunt. You top it off with an unbelievable boat ride with your friends and your two boys. You get the ducks back. You're on cloud nine. I don't know if you enjoy a cold beer once in a while, Kyle Broussard at Gator Tail Nation, but I'm going to assume you do, being where you're from. But you got a strap of mallards and some gadwall, maybe a widgeon, maybe a couple green wingers. What's your go-to recipe? I don't want to say this is like your last supper you ever get to cook with Wildfowl, but what is the go-to Cajun recipe from Kyle Broussard for ducks? Wild duck, what are you going to do to show off? Let's say we're in town, me and Skip are there, and we're like, cook us the best duck you could possibly cook, Kyle Broussard.
Look, I'm gonna tell you a story, and it's not gonna be the best duck, but I gotta tell you this story, okay? So at the end of the 2021 season, I have a good friend of mine that owns some property about an hour and a half from here, and it's a flooded rice field. And they had some coot that moved in on his flooded rice field. So at the end of the season, he decided we're gonna have a coot shoot is what we're gonna do. And we had I think he invited about 20 to 30 guys over there. And we brought the kids and the dogs. And the limit is, I think, 15 a person on coot. And I'm gonna tell you, that was one of the most memorable hunts of last season. Now, I had a pretty good one in the timber in Arkansas too, but this coot shoot that's one that you're never gonna forget. It's a memorable season. And we went over there and we killed a lot. I don't remember how many, but it was a lot. And of course, nobody over their limit. But so we came back and we cleaned them. And I made one of the best gumbos I had ever made in my life. And it was a duck. I mean, it was a coot. And I think I had probably some sausage in it, probably some elk sausage in it, but coot and sausage gumbo. And it was something to remember.
Coot gumbo. Okay, well, I know this is about boats, but I have to ask one more question about food. And plus, I'm starving. I'm about to eat some of this Jack Links. But how do you start a roux? Just give us the beginner's roux. If I wanted to go do it tomorrow out here in the western part of the country, is it his family secret, or can you tell me how to do a good roux? Just start it, and then I'll take it from there.
Well, I know I'm going to get criticized by this, but the way you start it is you get in your truck and you drive to the grocery store and you buy one of them jars that say Savoy roux or carriage roux or and that's how I start my roux. Because the last thing I want to do is go through all this and burn my roux and I got to start over. So, and I was always one, and a lot of people are adamant about, well, I'm going to cook my own roux. And the buddy of mine that I hunted with, he's one of the best cooks I know. and he goes to the store and he buys his jar of roux. So if he can do it, I can do it. So
I always wondered if Coots would make at least good jerky or something. Now we got to try gumbo.
And I'm gonna tell you this. So that day when we shot those Coots, all my buddies I hunt with in Arkansas, they sent me a picture because we had got invited up there for the closer, and they sent me this picture of all these mallards they killed. And of course, I got to send them a picture of the kid dog with all these Coots. And they're like, man, what are you going to do with that? And I said, well, cooking it. And I sent them a picture of the gumbo. And they're like, man, I cannot believe you eating that. These things eat in the ditches up here. These were corn and rice fed Coot. So it's, that's Coot gumbo down here is something that is very well known. It's something that in Louisiana, you can always go and shoot you a couple of Coot. You might not always have mallards or teal or gadwall or whatever else, but you can always go shoot Coot. And going back to that original question of what the recipe, we shoot primarily, we're shooting gadwall and we're shooting teal. And just like everything else, you're gonna cook them on the pit. I like just straight salt and pepper on a pit, probably medium rare. And I tell you, my kids will go there and we fillet the breast off, and the kids will go in and they cut out the legs, and we cook them over the barbecue pit, drink some beer, and just a conversation, just as an appetizer or something like that. It's teal are very, very hard to beat over here.
Ooh, man, I could eat some teal right now. Are you going to participate in the 2021 early teal season, Kyle Broussard? Will your boats be out in the water come September 1st?
I'm going to tell you, I think it's around September 8th over here, I think is what it is. Somewhere around there. And forgive me because I usually know it by heart, but it's been a long year. But anyhow, I will definitely be in the marsh on that opening morning with mosquitoes so thick in your ears that you can't hear the teal. And whenever them little green wings are going to pass by, you're going to forget about all your worries, man. That's one of the most, that is, growing up as a kid, we used to hunt squirrels, and October 1st, first weekend of October, you couldn't sleep. Whenever we were little kids, because that was the beginning of hunting season. And then as I got introduced to duck hunting later on, then that became the not be able to sleep. And there's nothing like it. Opening weekend of teal season, we go out there, we're there every time. Dogs, though, too many alligators, so we leave the dogs home. But yeah, we will be hunting out of the boat opening weekend.
Kyle, I heard a lot of stories about how we all graduate from different levels of this duck hunting, goose hunting culture, lifestyle. It can be mental, it can be physical, it can be financial. Mental, we start off by piles make smiles, and we got to get them. We're mad at them. We got to get a strap full every time to go into, well, hey, man, there's more to it. There's the roux. There's the standing around a pot. There's the cold beer and memories with your kids and the boat ride. Physically, we graduate different ways of it. We get better at it. We become better shots, better duck callers, better dog handlers, better boat operators. Financially, we also do this where we started with this shotgun, and I graduated to a Benelli later on. And we started with this ammo, and we graduated to this later on. What are we looking at here, Kyle Broussard? What do we have to be prepared for? How much money should I save up before I call you and I'm serious about buying a rig, a whole setup? I want the Predator. I want the 40 horsepower. What are we looking at? How do we buy it? Is there financing available? How do we get into one of these badass boat rigs and motors? Well,
what our business runs off a dealer network. So we have dealers across the country, and which was going to happen, the process of buying, you're going to call me on day one, and you're going to say, I'm interested in buying this boat. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say where you're located. And I'm going to try to hook you up with a stocking dealer in your area that may have a rig in stock. If they do not have a rig in stock, then we're going to look at what do they have coming down the pipeline? When are they going to get built? And that dealer is going to work with you, and they can do financing. The dealer will set you up with financing. Price wise, we have a spectrum of different prices depending on what boat you want. That is one of the largest factors in this supply chain of 2021 is that pricing is completely all over the globe right now. You know, I mean, it is, you know, we over the weekend, this past weekend, during the weekend, I got emails from 2 different vendors of price increases. So, you know, it's something that for me to give you the exact price, I don't even know right now. You know, we're trying to keep pricing down, trying to work with people, renegotiating contracts and that kind of deal. And that's one thing that we always strive for, is to make this as affordable as could be, because we want everybody to be able to afford to own one of these things.
Kind of in that vein, you were talking about respectful use, and I was talking about how people love these boats and want to get one because they want to be able to run over everything. And you were talking about how that's not the idea. It's purpose built and mission specific to get you to the spot to do what you need, to hunt, to fish, whatever. But it's not to go ripping around like it's an ATV. Are surface drives, are they under attack right now? I remember I heard a lot of rumors 2 or 3 years ago that kind of had me worried. I don't want to be the bearer, focus on negative things here, but while we're talking about that conversation of being respectful in their use, are they under attack still, or did that go away? Or
well, Skip, I believe that they were under attack the same way as our younger generations of duck hunters are under attack. And it is, and you know, one of my sayings is surface drives, Google Earth, and social media all came out at the same time. Okay. And just like back in the day, if I had a private hole, and I call it a private hole, I had a secret hole that nobody knew where it was. And I used to walk into that secret hole and I would kill ducks. And then now I have a couple of younger kids, I'm gonna call them kids, but younger guys, they come in with a surface drive, and now they're coming into my hunt, you know, and they're infringing on where it's public land, but it used to be a private, nobody knew about it. Then the surface drive is going to get a bad name because now it's accessible. I think that, you know, noise wise, everybody has to be conscious and you know, I know everybody likes to go fast and likes to make noise, and we were all that age one time and we all enjoyed it, but everybody has to be conscious that whenever it's duck season, let's be as stealthy as possible and let's be as quiet as possible. And the noise is something that we got a lot of feedback from. You know, I personally went and met with the Wildlife Commission in Arkansas a few years ago whenever all this was buzzing around. And you know, I stood up there and I said, let me help you make these quieter. Let you help me to make them quieter. Let's work together. Let's make it more acceptable. And what we came down to is that the decibel readings on a stock motor is well within any regulations of any lakes anywhere around. And it's just a matter of, if it goes back to hunting ethics, you know, and it goes back to not everybody, this sport of duck hunting is a great sport. It's one of the best things. I mean, I love it. You know, I mean, that's what I do for a living. And, you know, I'm fortunate that I'm able to teach my kids and some of my kids' friends how to duck hunt. But not everybody that gets into the duck hunting game has had anybody show them. And just because somebody is sky blasting at some passing ducks, they may not be doing it intentionally. They're doing it because that's all they know. You know, they weren't taught that you got to wait till the feet are down. You know, I never forget. I mean, I was hunting. I've been hunting timber, and you know, I have a buddy that I hunt with, and he's like, no. First time we go, we want to shoot them at the treetops. You know, we from Louisiana, man. We're going to shoot these things. And he's like, no. You're not going to shoot them until their feet are down and they're about to land. Well, and I said, well, okay. You know, and you learn that, and it's all about is the same thing. Is I believe that ethically, don't get me wrong. We were all young, and you did things when you were young that you wouldn't do today. But I think it's just, we wasn't taught right. You know, some guys are just not taught, and the surface drive got a bad name because of that. Now I think everybody's a lot more receptive to it. We're definitely trying to make them quieter. Every day, you know, we're trying to get them quieter and more comfortable. And as long as it's not seen as, just like I said, don't go try to run over something that doesn't need to be ran over. I mean, South Louisiana, this, you know, the storms that we have had in the past, the past years, tearing up our coast. The last thing we need is to go jump over some marsh that doesn't need to be jumped over. We use them for what they're made for, and don't destroy the environment with them. I don't want a person to be 80 years old and having to walk into a duck blind because I can't use my gator tail anymore because somebody saw it as a threat to the environment. This is what we preach, and we've addressed a lot of those things and try to kind of like a tread easy type thing as you saw with the UTVs and ATVs many years ago. You just got to be smart about it.
Very well said, Kyle.
I actually covered that a lot. Yeah, the ATVs really exploded around the turn of the century, 2000. And I was an outdoor writer at a newspaper at that time, and doing a bunch of other sports writing. And they came out and they were really abusive. I mean, I'd be a mile and a half in, and some guy with a jelly donut stained T-shirt and a rifle would be riding by me somewhere he's absolutely not supposed to be. But they started getting banned and restricted to trails as a result. And then the self-policing started. The ATV communities, at least out west, I don't know if it's everywhere, but this is because there's so much public land. That was Utah, 85% public land in that state. They started self-policing and encouraging people to get tickets and reporting guys who are running off-road through high mountain meadows and fragile environments. And it really came around. I was shocked. I didn't think, after initially covering all the destruction that was going on, that they were capable of doing that. They did. And people stick to the trails now because they don't want to get banned. So
yeah,
respect can be taught, but it comes from your own community, I think, most of the time.
I think it does.
Correct.
I think that it's like Kyle's touching on, and we've said it so many times before, in this lifestyle, this is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not written into our Declaration of Independence or our Constitution that we're allowed to own boats or run boats or hunt. We do have the right to bear arms through our Second Amendment, and we fight for that and we protect that. But we're not, and this is not an embedded right. This is a privilege, and it has to be taken care of, and it has to be nurtured, and it has to have the flag flown the right way with compassion for the animal, respect for the resource, respect for other hunters. Leave ego out of it. We know your boat will go fast, but so did the General Lee. Bo and Luke Duke don't need to be out in the duck marsh all the time jumping the General Lee over a beaver a beaver dam just to show off. We know that they can do it. It's about respecting fellow duck hunters, and more importantly, respecting the habitat, conservation efforts, the animals that inhabit this place. It could be an insect. It could be something that you might not know that you're tearing up their home by operating a boat the wrong way. And we don't want to disrespect and try to ruin somebody else's duck hunt. We saw what happened at Reelfoot Lake last year because of something that could go wrong in the duck blind. Who knows why it happened? I'm still unsure of it, but I know it did happen. We don't need it. We don't need disrespect for anything that's involved in this privilege of being an American hunter. And I take it very serious because, like my good friend Remy Warren has told me so many times on this podcast, gentlemen, it's going to be a hunter that gets that privilege revoked if we're not careful. And we have to do this the right way. So it was very well said, Kyle. Thank you.
One thing that we learned a long time ago is that you want to be humble. You want to be humble, and whenever you want to be humble, and you want to be able to show off your bounty and show off, and it's good, it's fun. But man, just be humble and take advantage of the good days. Try to remember them. Your good hunts. It's something you're always going to remember. We have a saying whenever we fishing, me and my wife and the kids, and we go out and we don't fish, we don't catch many fish. It's not the catch you're gonna remember, is the memories you're gonna remember. And there's always gonna be something memorable about that fishing trip or about that hunting trip that you're always gonna remember. And like I said, man, just use them for what they're made for, and respect your neighbors. And it's gonna be a good season. I think this season is gonna be one to remember.
And I think that's a great way to end the podcast on Boats and Motors with the great Kyle Broussard, founder, owner of Gator Tail Nation, Gator Tail Boats and Motors, Louisiana, Cajun country. I can't believe that you admitted on national podcasts that you don't make homemade roux. I don't know if you're going to get laughed at by other Cajuns, but there's a chance that you're going to get called out on this, Kyle Broussard. But I do love the transparency and the honesty.
I'm sure I will, buddy. I'm sure I will. But hey, it is what it is.
We learned a lot today about boats, motors, coot, gumbo, roo, everything that goes into this culture and this lifestyle. How unbelievable is the boat ride? I love the boat ride. I don't even have to be driving the boat, operating the boat. I just like the boat ride. I just like the idea of it, the image of it, the aura of it, the swagger of the boat ride. That's what we call it, the swagger of the boat ride. It just makes you feel different as a duck hunter. I just feel different when I get out of it and I know I'm getting ready to throw my blocks out and set up. See those leaves coming off the trees and man, hear it. You got me? Skip, you have? I love it. I love the idea. I love it. I appreciate Kyle. I appreciate Gator Tail Nation. Check them out in the new gear issue. I'm looking at a picture right now for all you YouTube followers. There's the boat right there in the new. Can you see that? Is my microphone in the way?
Oh, yeah.
This gear issue is key. It's so good, Skip. You and your crew knocked it out of the park again. We're excited to be part of the Wildfowl family, the culture of Wildfowl magazine. It's been around for so long. And like I said, if I go into a duck lodge or a duck camp and I don't see it sitting on the coffee table or the kitchen counter, the bathroom where Skip does all of his reading, then I'm probably not going to be in a very good mood. So let's try to get Wildfowl in all the lodges and camps across the country, from the eastern shore to Arkansas, Louisiana, to California and the Butte Sink, to Washington, the Pacific Northwest. I've ran my Gator Tail in the Pacific Northwest, in Oregon, Washington, and on the Yellowstone River in Montana. I love duck hunting. I love going everywhere those boats and motors will take me. Thank you, Kyle Broussard. Thank you, Skip Knowles. This has been another episode of the Fowl Life Podcast, 2021 Giant Gear issue by Wildfowl Magazine podcast series. We'll be back at you with another episode soon, another section soon. Get your copy on newsstands, open your mailbox, cherish it, read it, get ready for the best duck and goose season we've ever had, 2021-22. I'm Chad Belding, the Fowl Life Podcast. Tom Jake, hit that button. This is 2 a.m. Logic. The song is called My Fowl Life. See ya.